Hey everyone, super excited to be here with JP, who is the co-founder and CEO of allplants. JP, thanks so much for being here.
It's a pleasure, Maureen. Thanks for having me.
Let's start off. What was the inspiration behind allplants?
Great question. Really started with my own personal food journey, and having gradually tiptoed into the world of living veggie at home from around 6-7 years ago, mainly to impress a girl who now has ended up becoming my wife, which is very lucky. I was still living a very typical kind of wide Western omnivore diet. And then, about 4.5 years ago, I suppose, I just woke up to the crazy impact, negative impact that animal agriculture has on our planet. To realise that it wasn't just me who'd started to realise just how important this change was. And it also wasn't just the old trope of like radical sandal-wearing hippies or placard-toting activists who are starting to think more consciously about their food choices. It was actually people coming from all normal walks of lives who you wouldn't expect to be branded with the V badge previously. And that felt like a really important moment. And I guess what I realised was that this wasn't, what was potentially afoot was a massive, wide-sweeping societal change. But also that it just is never going to happen unless someone makes it easy and makes it delicious.
What's the sort of, when you think about the fact that allplants obviously is great for people because it's a plant-based diet, which you know is massively good for you, but also obviously the impact on the planet. Can you talk to both of those sort of sides of the equation and some of the positive impacts both for people and for planet?
Yeah, so I mean, on the health side, there's been such an array of really powerful medical and scientific studies done particularly in the last couple of decades, looking at societies all over the world who've actually lived for a long time, almost exclusively, if not fully, plant-based diet, and showing the way that it significantly contributes to reducing all of the lifestyle diseases that are becoming a big deal in the Western world now. So everything from cardiovascular disease, obesity, diabetes, and all other chronic illnesses, including cancers as well. So it really is a wellness medicine, if you like. And having previously worked in healthcare, I feel almost like a bit of a muppet having not realised that before. But the planetary impact of plant-based is something that I could talk about for hours, and I think is one that we shouldn't ignore. You took your food carbon footprint, for example, Maureen. I'm not judging you in any way, but say you're just a normal person in the UK eating a typical diet. If you took that diet and then you said, well, what about if Maureen goes vegetarian? Right, so take out all the meat and fish, keep eating dairy and eggs and what have you. You can immediately chop your food carbon footprint in half, by 50%. That's a massive personal choice you can have to have a positive impact on the planet. So that's really exciting. Now actually, if you choose to go all the way and take the even braver step of going vegan or plant-based, as I prefer to call it, you can strip out the rest down to 80% out and leaving you with 20% of your previous food carbon footprint.
No, and I think actually picking up on what you said earlier that I think is really exciting for allplants is also the fact that you're not saying it's all or nothing. It's not you're vegan or you're not vegan, and this is something that I really think is actually a big part of where we're moving to as well, which is that actually if everyone eats more plants, in whatever equation works for you, then that leads to a massive pivot towards a significantly reduced impact.
I mean, it's by far and away the most exciting area of impact. You know, we, from the very beginning, wanted to create allplants, not for vegans or veggies, but for what I've always lovingly called plant-curious peeps. And that happens to be today around 60% of adults in the UK who are actively reducing the amount of meat they're eating, and as a result, just kind of discovering this new world of, well, okay, but I've just taken the main off my plate, what do I eat? And you know, the classic meal in the UK is meat and 2 veg, right? And that's one of the easiest things when you get home in the evening to do, whether it's a piece of fish or a piece of chicken. It's a lot of people's default go-to. And actually, when you take that away, that easy backup, what on earth do I eat? Is the question I hear a lot. So we've always existed for the plant curious. People say flexitarian, and as you mentioned earlier, we've started referring to it as vegan-ish as well. And it's just saying that just give it a whirl, have a little taste. And we recently launched something called the All Plants Challenge, which is to eat 2 days a week, plant-based. And there's many scientific stats we've managed to pull together to support this. And one of them is that if everyone in the UK chose to eat plant-based 2 days a week, we would save in greenhouse gases the equivalent of taking 54% of cars off the road in the UK next year.
That's an incredible statistic, isn't it?
So
it's mind-blowing.
Gone,
exactly.
Just because you change how we eat a little bit.
Yeah.
And that shows the power of small changes.
At a mass scale.
At a mass scale. And that's what we're all about. And we really see that as our role, to try to make it exciting and easy, but also welcoming. Because it's often, I think to date, been very much all in or nothing. You can either be a vegan and you have a halo and you're amazing, or like you're not a good person, and that's wrong, because that's not right at all. And for different people at different times, it will fit, and it's about helping everyone along that journey.
And it can be a journey. It can be that people start off with that 2 days a week, realise how delicious it is to generally be plant-based, and move to 5 days a week, 6 days a week, and then maybe fully vegan. It's everyone finds their
secret.
spectrum.
Don't tell anyone about that. That's what we're working towards. But yeah, no, you're right. And look, because it's such a big change to change what you eat, it's one of our most habitual activities every day. That's very instinctive and unconscious decisioning. It is just allowing people to discover and get used to, like, that was delicious, and I feel great. I feel energized, I feel full, and I thought it was too light, but actually this is really good. And only by having a few of those experiences can you start to say, oh no, I'm into this. There's no way of telling someone that. You have to experience it for yourself.
I thought something that was really interesting on the recipes actually also is a bit what you mentioned before about your own upbringing in childhood, is you've chosen, from my perspective, correct me if I'm wrong, but you've chosen a lot of the recipes that people would naturally associate, like the mac and greens, or the plant-based equivalent of lasagna, stews. It's really these kind of warm and hearty, emotionally resonant recipes, but with a full plant-based twist, as opposed to introducing things that people would maybe really not necessarily relate to, perhaps. So do you want to talk a little bit about the recipes and how you come up with them? It's quite interesting.
Yeah, so actually, funnily enough, in the early days, we really saw our recipes as we wanted to champion how exciting plant-based could be, and we really put ourselves out there as flavor pioneers. And so actually, the recipes we were making, and many of these are still on our menu today, were much more almost deliberately exotic and unusual, to make you think, oh, I've never had a Caribbean jerk jackfruit dish, like, let me try this. And those were really cool because they became talking points, they became things that we were known for. But then actually everything we've done since, we've simply listened to our really amazing subscribers, and we've got an All Plants tasting club and an All Plants insiders group who literally just tell us what to cook, and then we say, okay, we'll cook this, we'll cook that. And almost not surprisingly, actually what everyone really wants is exactly as you said, those things that we're all very familiar with, that we actually all have actually an emotional connection to as a recipe or as a cuisine. But we've never even thought about, how could I make a carbonara sauce without the cheese, the cream and the butter? How is that even possible? Likewise, how on earth, and I love bolognese so much, how can you have an incredible, rich, hearty bolognese sauce that doesn't have lamb and pork mince in it? It turns out you can, and it also turns out, and this is something we've been very deliberate about in our innovation kitchen, we don't use any refined or processed products. Everything's very natural, and so, for example, in our bolognese, we have three main body and flavour carriers. One is the roasted and shredded mushrooms, the second is actually our nibbed and crushed walnuts, and then the third is the kind of combination of carrot and courgette that we've turned into a mince. And when you pull those together, it creates this beautiful body, instead of going and getting the latest Beyond Meat or Impossible alternative meat product and putting it in. And we simply see that plants are so incredibly good for you anyway, and you can make them into delicious food. Why would we need to use these kind of factory or science developed products?
Yeah.
And at least, and I support those, by the way, they're fantastic, and some of them are really delicious. But at least for us, that's what we do in our kitchen.
Yeah. Who or what inspires you?
For me, the thing that inspires me most is humanity, quite simply, and the fact that as hard as it seems right now, and as almost insurmountable the climate crisis in particular looks and feels, I at least continue to be a true optimist, because I honestly really believe in the capability of people to come together and mobilize around mass change and innovate in ways that we can't even guess and imagine at right now. There's so many problems to solve, but there's also such creative and brave energy out there to go after and fix those problems. And it's I think we're all very lucky to be alive at this time, because it's a very special time, and hopefully over the next couple of decades we'll find our way to a whole new way of being.
Yeah, it really is.
Which I'm really excited about. Yeah.
And ultimately, what is your dream for the business, for All Plants down the track?
Yeah,
what's your ultimate vision?
When we started, we simply had the great belief that somebody had to make it exciting and easy in order to ignite what we felt was a plant-based revolution. And that still stays very much at its core. And the exciting thing for us with All Plants, and with anyone working in this realm of food today, is I've built multiple ventures before, and they still exist, and they've grown to great successes. But I've never worked in an environment where you're running with such a fast-moving tide, and where there's this major societal shift that it's impossible to keep up with. So when we look at that, and when we look at the way that plant-based is going to rapidly over the next couple of decades become not just a new category, but it will become all of food. It has to. That's really exciting for us. And we look at what Red Bull did for energy drinks, or what Brewdog did for craft beer, and we greatly believe there are going to be a small handful of brands that really define this space and turn it into something that, as a movement, is truly aspirational and makes it kind of accessible, welcoming, and just cool and normal, really, for everyone.
Amazing. Thank you so much, JP. Really appreciate
it.
Thank you.
That was really fun.